Yo, how's it going, guys? Today we've got an interesting engine kingdom here that we played in our league match against fiercelord last week. Sorry for the lack of uploads, guys. I've been pretty busy with school and stuff, but hopefully we're gonna get some more videos out real soon. Anyway, let's take a look at this kingdom here. So an engine technically is possible here. We've got Hideout for Village, we've got Wayfarer and Catacombs for Draw. The only problem is that Hideout, you trash a card from your hand, and so it's very unreliable. You have to feed it a lot of food in order to make it sustainable. So fortunately, Wayfarer does gain you silvers, and so you're able to keep the engine going with Hideouts and Wayfarers. You just have to keep a careful balance of each. Looks like we've got Alms and Toil here. Alms, basically, all it means is that 5-2 is going to be really nice here. You're not really going to have any trouble hitting 4 on this board. And Toil basically means that Cargo Ship and Haggler and Priest are definitely a lot better just because they can basically be non-terminal if you want them to be. You'd probably don't really want to Catacombs here just because Wayfarer is cheaper, you're going to be able to pick up more copies easier, and also it gives you the silver to help you keep your engine running. So Priest is probably the better trasher at first just because it gives you money, except for Hideout. There's also a case to be made for Hideout just because if you trash the estate and get a curse and Wayfarers cost 0 that turn, so you'd have to combo that with Pawn or something in order to pick up a Wayfarer and an engine component to get your engine up and running quickly. Alright, let's get into the gameplay here. Both my opponent and I open 3-4. fiercelord starts off with a cargo, which is pretty reasonable because you're going to want to accelerate your 5ers at the beginning. I alms for a priest, I just alms for fun, doesn't really matter. I make him think I might have 5-2. So he goes for Cargo Hideout, which I guess is alright. I feel like I preferred Cargo Priest just because at the opening, Priest gives you money, and also because of Toil, you don't really have to worry about colliding your terminals. And so he gets 5, he gets a Vampire. So I also have a nice hand with my Cargo and 3 coppers. So this is a toss-up between Haggler and Vampire. Haggler is good because it gets you a bunch of engine components quickly, but down here in these 7 cards, I've also got my Priest, and so Vampire is probably better for getting more mileage, just because Haggler is terminal. And sure enough, I do draw my Priest there. He's going to get another Hideout, and so probably for him at this point, getting a Pawn is best so he can get that plus buy, taking advantage of those Wayfarers costing 0. He asked for an undo there. I'm not sure what exactly he was trying to undo. But anyway, fortunately, that Hex doesn't really hurt me much. In fact, it basically just discards a copper off the top of my deck, which I'm pretty happy about. So at this point here, I think I definitely need a Hideout because I've got terminals, and even with Toil, they'll still be more effective when I have a village. I think about getting a Wayfarer, and I do that thing where I hover the card over it, but I'm pretty sure I do want a Wayfarer here, just because I've got a Hideout, I've got Toil, I want to start drawing through my deck. I don't quite get it all lined up here, but this is basically as good as I could have reasonably expected. I get a silver because I want the money, and so I definitely want to be playing this Cargo with Toil here, and I probably want, I'm not really sure. I could get a Wayfarer just because I know that my Hideout is down there. I do decide to get another Hideout, probably a mistake. Probably should have been a Wayfarer, actually. Anyway, my opponent will get it lined up. He'll get the Hideout and the Wayfarer, so it's going to be pretty good for him. He alms for another Wayfarer, and he gets to set aside with Cargo Ship, which is good for him because he's got another Hideout. I do get some extra money off of Priest here, and so that's one good thing about getting the Hideout. And I got another choice about whether or not to get a silver. I do decide to get it, just because eventually I'm going to be trashing down too fast, and I want to have freedom to trash my coppers and estates without too much worry. Since I got the Hideout last turn, it's probably time to get another Wayfarer, so I do get one, and I do hit him with Poverty, which is going to be pretty lucky. So right here with my Vampire gain, I could decide to get another engine component, except for I don't really think a third Hideout's very good yet, and getting another Wayfarer might leave me a little tight on terminal space. Maybe another reason why I maybe shouldn't have done the Priest. Not entirely sure. And so I could get a Haggler just for the gaining. That could be useful if I want to get Wayfarer and Hideout at the same time. So I do get the Haggler. So my opponent's basically going to do the same thing. He gets the Haggler, and he already had the Hideouts. I do get everything lined up here. Because I had those silvers, I do get a little money boost, but unfortunately it is kind of not exactly a single game board, but it's going to be rather difficult to build to, say, double province. So I only have one buy here. I could get a pawn, so I'd have more buys in the future. I hover over gold and take one. The reason I decided to get gold that turn is because I can get double engine component with Haggler, including a pawn if I want one, except maybe it wasn't really right to take the gold, just because it's rarely right to take a gold, I think. fiercelord gets a third Wayfarer there, so he's doing pretty well as long as he keeps pretty careful tabs on his terminal space. Right here I have an interesting decision about whether or not to play the Wayfarer. I definitely want to toil for both the cargo and the haggler. It's just a matter of whether or not triggering the shuffle is worth it to get another fiver. In the actual game, I decide to just not play the Wayfarer because I don't want all the stuff to miss my shuffle. I do have a bat coming in to be a vamp there, and I do manage to get... I decided that I wanted a pawn already, and so I basically get the cheap engine components there, though maybe it would have been better to get, say, a Wayfarer and also a Hideout. So here my opponent gets unlucky, he doesn't draw any of his hideouts. Perhaps maybe he's a bit over-terminaled. But anyway, he also decides to get a gold. Just for the record, I think that both of these golds that me and my opponent got were a mistake. I get the silvers, though, just because I get them for free, and because they're hideout food. And so here I do hit a high price point. I decide to play my haggler. Here I could get a province, hoping that I could still keep on building due to haggler. And so, after thinking about it for a while, I decide to get the province. Not entirely sure whether that was the right move. But then I get a Wayfarer because I want to set up my next turn, and I know I've got another hideout there, which I can also set aside with my cargo ship. So I do get pretty lucky here because my opponent has another suboptimal turn. I mean, he got his hideouts, but he didn't get his Wayfarers. So pretty lucky for me. My opponent's going to have 5 here, so he could get like a Wayfarer if he's willing to pick up something cheap. He goes for pawn Wayfarer, which I think is reasonable, but he's still running pretty tight on terminal space, even with those 3 hideouts. Especially because he played 2 on that turn, so he's not likely to have many this turn. So I'll toil just so that I can get my cargo in play, and so fortunately with both haggler and cargo, I'll get something in my next hand for free. So I should basically be able to province from here on out. This turn doesn't look too good for me. My opponent also does start to pick up. He did line up his hideout and his Wayfarer from his cargo last turn. So then with his bat, he trashes one of his Wayfarers. Maybe he thought he had too many terminals or something, but I think that's definitely a mistake, because you kind of need the Wayfarers to draw your deck. Right now I'm basically drawing my deck. This bat, I'm starting to question its usefulness, just because I'm already getting engine components from haggler, and plus, it isn't giving me any money. It's basically just taking up spot in my hand. So I actually don't hit province here, so I'm just going to toil to get as much stuff as I can. And again, I'm hovering over the gold here, which is like no bueno, but that probably should have been like another Wayfarer if anything. But anyway, I do get the gold, and I trash my priest with bat. So fiercelord gets another 7 turn, or not another one, but he gets 7. I think this game he's been getting pretty unlucky. He goes for a 3rd gold, which I definitely don't think you need, because Wayfarers with the silver is definitely enough payload. Here I have to trash something valuable. I'm not entirely sure what I want to trash. I really wanted to set up the next turn with cargo, and I figured I could replace the Wayfarer. Guess that's a little hypocritical of me. Here I do definitely want to toil my cargo ship. I could also toil the pawn, but then I wouldn't actually have enough to play the action that I might draw with pawn, so I decided not to toil the pawn. Here I don't have my haggler in play, so I'm not actually able to set up my next turn very well. I can only set it up with a hideout, except for I figure that since I'm already ahead 3 provinces to 0, if I just get single province and basically play money here with all these silvers, I should be fine. And here I hit him with envious, so he couldn't actually afford a province. He just gets a duchy, which I'm not sure is correct, but I'm not sure what you would do at that point. So here fiercelord has quite a good turn. Unfortunately for him, since he didn't play his pawn for the plus buy, he doesn't actually have more than 1 buy here. He does manage to set up his next turn pretty good, except for he gets a 4th gold, which I'm not sure I would have gotten, just because he needs more plus buy, and like he needs to have like more of those turns, so getting another Wayfarer would have made him more reliable. Anyway, here I'm kind of spinning. These provinces are kind of breaking the deck quickly, and here I decided to part with my bat just because I don't even really think I want a vampire anymore. So I get another Wayfarer here just because I know I've got hideouts in the next hand, except unfortunately the server does close, And so, yeah, we both got kicked out of the game, and I checked my internet connection, but it's not that. The server actually crashed. So yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. We couldn't even load this game afterwards. It still says that the game's in progress. And fiercelord did graciously concede this game, which was pretty nice of him. I think I was definitely ahead, but still nice of him. Anyway, that's game 3 for you there. Alright, you guys, well, it's a shame we didn't get to finish that one, except for, nonetheless, we definitely have some takeaways here. So I think this is basically its own class of game, where Hideout is the only village. So basically, here on this board, there was a way to defeat it, which is Wayfarer, but another strategy which might have been interesting, not sure if it would have necessarily competed here, just because of all the support for the engine, but you could also just play money and use the hideout trashing kind of lightly. Just in order to support money, you only need light trashing. And so basically here, even if you're not necessarily drawing deck every turn, you can still get a province, and then it's basically just as well. You don't necessarily need to be drawing your deck every turn, and I think it's rather difficult too, actually, especially when you're gaining all those silvers. Also, I guess as I was saying during the earlier commentary, I think gold here is definitely a mistake. I'm not even sure if getting 1 is correct. You probably just go off of silvers, just because it doesn't go very well with the hideout engine. Hideout and Wayfarer, you definitely have to strike a pretty delicate balance with lining them up, and getting the golds kind of got in the way of that. You don't want to trash the golds, except for they're not exactly helping you draw the deck. Finally, there's Haggler, which definitely, first of all, definitely supported the engine. Not only is it useful for picking up 2 engine components in a turn and getting going quickly, but not only that, you could get a province and then an engine component, so you can continue to build, and even get more consistent with cargo ships. So even if you're getting a province, you can set up your next turn, and so you can continue to get province and start from an early stage. Not only that, here basically a single province is more or less all you could hope for, and so basically it's just going to be about who can get province first. Then after that, it's basically just single province. Also, just a disclaimer, I got pretty lucky this game, so fiercelord, if you're watching that, I acknowledge I definitely got lucky. Alright, you guys, that's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe for better server speed, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!